This workflow here gave me a harder time than I expected. Don't get me wrong, I still got it working, but what I learned in the process will save you a lot of time and headaches. The workflow I set up connects your Typeform straight to Google Sheets, meaning you'll never have to copy responses manually again. To be more precise, whenever someone fills out a Typeform, this workflow automatically saves their response in Google Sheets and sends a confirmation email. Alright, let's set it up. The workflow is triggered by a certain event outside of n8n, a form submission. That's why we start with a Webhook Trigger. If you've seen my first video on APIs, you know how apps talk to each other. A webhook is the same communication, only that it's started by Typeform instead of your n8n server. To be more precise, Typeform sends an HTTP request directly to your n8n server. That makes Typeform the client and n8n the server. The method we're using is POST, which basically means send data to the server. n8n gives you two versions of this URL, a test one and a production one. For now, I'll start with the test URL and later switch to production. Now we go to Typeform and create a new form. Choose contact info, for example, and here we got our form. Then we go to Connect, go to Webhooks and add a webhook. When I first built this workflow, I thought all I had to do was just copy this webhook URL and paste it inside. Sounds logical, right? Because that's the endpoint. But turns out something wasn't right, as you can see now. If you're self-hosting like me, then this local address only works on your computer and not on the internet, meaning Typeform needs a public endpoint. That's where a tunnel comes in. I'm using ngrok. It basically creates a secure temporary bridge from the internet to your local server. If you want a deeper look at how to set up ngrok or other ways to test webhooks locally, then I might cover that in another video. To go to ngrok, we open the terminal and put in this command. Then we copy this URL. Also make sure you keep the terminal open while you run your workflow. Then we go back to Typeform and replace the local address with the URL from ngrok. Make sure all spaces are closed, otherwise the link won't work, and save the webhook. Now that we have successfully built a connection between Typeform and n8n, we activate the webhook and go back to n8n. One small detail that cost me some time was just activating the workflow, so we're gonna do that. And since we're using the test URL, we click on Listen for Test Events. Then we go back to Typeform, we go to Deliveries and click Send Test Request. And as you can see, it was a success. So back in n8n, you can see the output here, which doesn't look really pleasant in the eyes of a non-technical person. If you understand what's going on here on a surface level, it's not even that bad, because you can utilize the drag and drop function. When I found out about it, it was a game changer for me. Now let's connect the Webhook Trigger to the Google Sheets node. We're gonna choose append row, and I already prepared a sheet with the data that I want, which is name, email, and company. What you need to remember is that most webhooks store the actual data inside the body. For a better overview, we're gonna close a couple of brackets. Here you see the body, and we're gonna open these brackets. Then we're gonna search for the answers. When I shared the form, Typeform didn't use any real data, it used default data. When we go back to Typeform, you see we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 options. So this block is the first name, this one the last name, the number, the email, and this one's the company. The data we want is the name, email, and company. All we need to do now is drag and drop the output into these fields. Let's start with the name. Then we're gonna proceed with the email, and lastly, the company. So these expressions make your workflow dynamic, meaning n8n will automatically map the current data into your Google Sheets. Now let's move on to an easier part, which is setting the Gmail node. Then we're going to go to send a message. Let's call the subject new entry. The email type, we're going to go with text and say new lead from, and then I want a company name. The company name needs to be mapped correctly. That's why we're going to execute the previous node, the Google Sheets node. Now we can again drag and drop. Now let's test if I even get this email. And this is the email that I got. So the Gmail node ran successfully. Now let's run the whole workflow. Therefore, we're going to use the production URL and replace it with the test URL in the Typeform webhook. So we go back to Connect, to Webhooks, Webhook off, add a webhook, put in our production URL, and replace our local address with the ngrok URL. We're going to activate it, and this time, instead of doing a test round, we're going to fill a form with fake data. Therefore, we go to Content, share. We're gonna copy the link and fill this out with fake data. So once we submit, the workflow should be triggered. Oh, here I used the German phone number. Now it should work. Now let's go back to n8n, go to executions. Then you can see the workflow was run successfully. We got the name, email, and company as we wanted. Let's also check if there was a Sheets entry. Yes, there was. And lastly, we check if we got an email. And here you can see the message we wanted. So that's the first real automation I built. If you're still struggling with webhooks, credentials, or ngrok, feel free to subscribe so you don't miss any steps. And if something wasn't clear or you've got ideas for what to automate next, drop them in the comments. With that said, thanks for watching.